Okay, so we've all seen the reports. Anti-Semitism is up on some college campuses since the start of the Israel-Hamas conflict, and it is causing great concern. Leaders at Columbia University are now taking steps to address it on their campus.
And during a hearing on Capitol Hill, Columbia leaders testified that they are actually putting policies into place to address this issue. This, of course, after the resignation of presidents from Harvard and UPenn who testified last year and received backlash for not addressing it. Well, joining us this morning right now is human rights attorney and the founder of the End Jew Hatred movement, Brooke Goldstein. Brooke, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You know, anytime we see expressions of hate, it is deeply concerning. So why this increase in anti-Semitism, especially in higher education right now?
Well, I think personally it's because we have ignored the radicalization happening on our college campuses for over the past 10 years. The problem, and as Dr. Phil said in his amazing statement after October the 7th, is that we're so concerned with microaggressions. We're so concerned with virtue signaling, with calling out hatred against Muslims, against gays, against Asians, against blacks. And yet the Jewish people, who are the oldest, most persecuted minority community in human history, have yet to attain parity. And it is still socially acceptable to engage in anti-Jewish discrimination. Well, we aim to change that. At the Lawfare Project, we have filed several groundbreaking civil rights lawsuits against universities across the country. And together with the End Jew Hatred movement, we are mobilizing the Jewish community to demand equal protection under the law and to demand that our civil rights are protected as well as a minority community.
Now, Brooke, last year, elite university presidents were asked if calling for the genocide of Jews violated the school's code of conduct. They could not provide a clear answer. In fact, that testimony was included in Dr. Phil's very first episode. But yesterday, all of Columbia's witnesses answered yes to that very same question. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you brought that up, because at Columbia's hearing yesterday, we saw the president of the school as well as the board of trustees testify before Congress. And yes, they had all the right answers and they were pandering to the media. But the problem is, while they admit what is happening on their campus is not right, there are zero consequences. For example, Professor Andre Ivanov, when she was found after having multiple complaints filed against her for Jew hatred, and she was found by the Columbia administration to have violated their policies and engaged in anti-Jewish discrimination, she was sent on a sabbatical, and then she was invited right back onto campus to discriminate another time against our client. So the problem is that consequences are key. And the administrations, not just at the Columbia University, but at all of these universities where we're seeing these pro-Hamas mobs run rampant, are refusing to enforce the law, and they're refusing even to enforce their own student code.
Wow. Well, you know, you talk about accountability. Columbia just instituting a new policy for unsanctioned events and punishments for students who attend. Do you think this is going to be an effective deterrent in light of the landscape that we're dealing with right now?
Look, a couple weeks ago, Columbia revised its policy as well about protests, saying that protests could only happen in a certain designated area. And look what we saw happen last night. The students know that the school has no backbone, that the administrators are refusing to deal with them and ensure there are consequences for this pro-terror support and for this anti-Jewish discrimination. And that is why we at the Lawfare Project have felt it absolutely necessary to file civil rights lawsuits against the schools and to get the courts involved, where there'll be real accountability for this unlawful behavior.
Brooke, as you know, 2 days ago, the University of Southern California banned a Palestinian valedictorian from speaking at graduation in May amid safety concerns. She has expressed publicly her views toward Jews. Now she doesn't get to stand in front of her peers. The school is claiming safety. She's claiming she doesn't get free speech. What's your take on this?
There is no free speech right to be a valedictorian at your school. That is a privilege. And it is certainly a privilege that this woman has not earned. She was not banned because she's Palestinian. I know a lot of Palestinians. They are pro-peace and they are anti-terror. She was banned because she publicly supported the genocide of the Jewish people and the destruction of the Jewish state. And the school was well within their right to disinvite her to address the campus community. And I'll point something else out as well. The Council on American Islamic Relations, which is a Muslim Brotherhood front organization and an unindicted co-conspirator in a terror funding trial, has now announced that they are working with this woman and making these furious claims that her civil rights have been violated.
Wow. Well, Brooke, we want to thank you so much for the depth of your insight. It's so important to clarify what is protected under free speech. So, Brooke Goldstein, thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to have you back.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke.